One of the biggest mistakes that guys make when they go out on a first date is that they take the girl to a place that they've never been to, right? The guy takes the girl to a place where the guy has never been to. If you take the girl to a place that she's never been to, that's fine. But if you're a guy and you take her to a place that you've never been to, um, it could pose some problems. It's not ideal. It's not optimal. Let me tell you why. Okay, most guys do this simply because they want to peacock, right? They want to impress the girl, so they take her to a place that they themselves have never been to. They've never screened it before, right? They want to project a fake lifestyle, usually, right? Something that's gonna wow her, right? Like a fancy restaurant or a luxurious place. But if it's a farce, if that's not really who you are, it's a red flag, and girls can see that, right? Women can see red flags when you're peacocking, when you're just showboating, right? Like, oh, I'm trying to impress you, right? If it's not normal for you to go to luxury places, you're better off not doing it, right? And I understand why guys feel the need to take her to an extravagant place or impress her on a first date, right? They say sometimes your first impression is your only. But if, okay, let's say you take her to a restaurant. By you taking her there, you're co-signing on that restaurant, right? So if there's a cockroach that ends up in her plate, right, you might hold yourself accountable. Like, wow, I brought her to this restaurant. Now there's a dead cockroach on her plate. That's on me, right? Take her to a place that you've been to and you know that is going to give you great service, okay? When you take a girl on a date, on a first date, it should be a place that you're familiar with, okay? You should know this place like the back of your hand, okay? When you take her on a date, it should feel like you're in your backyard, right? You're familiar with everything. You feel comfortable, you feel confident, you're focused. It's gonna make you feel relaxed, right? It's gonna be like you're at home when you take her to a place that you're familiar with, right? Now, if you want to stay confident, be composed, and you don't want to come across as being clumsy, you're better off being in a place that you know how to navigate through, okay? The potential setbacks for you taking it to a place that you've never been to, let me paint a picture for you, okay? Let's say you take a girl out to a first date to a place that you've never been to, okay? You get there and you don't know what the parking situation looks like. You can't find the parking structure. You don't know if there's valet, right? You can't find parking, right? You finally find the valet and you see that they're charging you cash. You don't have cash, you only have credit card, or vice versa, right? Um, you get to the restaurant and everything in the menu is out of your budget, right? Some of the items on the menu you're just not naturally gravitating to. You don't like it. Maybe she's on a special diet or you're on a special diet. The food looks horrible, right? Maybe the music that's there is not your aesthetic. Maybe it's music that you want to dance to. She doesn't dance, or vice versa, right? You want to figure all of these little things out. These little mannerisms that make you come across as more composed, grounded. If you don't know where the restroom's at and you're like, excuse me, you're asking for the waiter, excuse me, where's the restroom? Right? Excuse me, where's the restroom? I have to go right now. Right? I had too much to drink, right? It's these little things, right? I'm not saying asking for a restroom, asking where the restroom's at is a bad thing. But when you have these little mannerisms where you just know where to go, it just projects a different energy. You're well grounded, you're composed, you're in your frame. You just project a little bit of more independence, and that's what you want, right? You don't want to look clumsy in front of your first date. This is all low hanging fruit. This is all stuff that is easy. It's easy points. This is stuff that you can just avoid, and you don't have to do an extra layer of stress that you don't need, right? These are all things that you can just figure out prior to the date. That's gonna make it way easier, right? You go on a date, you know where to park, you know what the valet situation looks like, you know if it's cash or credit, You know what the music is, the energy. You know what's on the menu. You know what's within your budget. You know if it's great customer service. You know the waiters, the waitresses. Um, you know what you're gonna tip. Everything's. You know where the restrooms at. Everything's in an environment where, like I said, it feels like it's your backyard, right? Like the back of your hand. You know this already, right? This is low hanging fruit. That's easy. It's easy, right? So you don't have to focus on anything else. All of these things matter. Like when you go to a place, the seating arrangement matters. Okay? There's seating arrangements where there's like booths and you're sitting across from each other. So you're making more eye contact with the person. It's a little bit um, more direct, right? Maybe you don't want to make eye contact. Maybe that's not for you. Maybe you're not at that level, right? Where you want to be making eye contact with the person. Where it might feel like almost like a job interview. Where they're sitting across from you and you're making eye contact, but it's like an interrogation. Maybe that's not for you. Or maybe it is. Maybe you like making eye contact with people. It's a better connection, right? It's it's whatever medicine works for you. But you need to know this ahead of time. You need to know what the seating arrangement is. Maybe you want a booth, right? You're sitting next to each other. You're not necessarily making eye contact because you're side to side, but the booth is a little bit more intimate because you're proxy. You're closer to each other, right? There's a little bit of physical contact there that you wouldn't really otherwise get sitting across a table from somebody. It's all give and take, whatever you feel comfortable with. So you want to avoid these layers of stress that you can just set aside and figure out before the date, so it makes it run smooth, right? If you go to the movies, for example, again, you're next to each other. If you take her out to a movie, you're next to each other, but guess what? There's no communication. There's no communication. You're just sitting there, right? Looking forward, looking at the movie, but you're not really talking to each other. These are the things you have to figure out before the date. All right? This is all low hanging fruit that's going to make things run a lot easier. Don't take her to a place that you've never been to, that you never go to, simply because you want to impress her. Okay? The date should feel like she's getting a sneak peek into your regular life. Okay? It's gonna she's supplementing your program. She's supplementing your lifestyle. You're showing her what you normally do. All right? It's not changing your lifestyle to impress her. It's allowing her to go into your lifestyle. Allowing her to see who you really are. Right? It's not about peacocking and trying to, wow her with the setting. It's not about setting unrealistic expectations when you take her to places that you've never been to, where you're out of your element, and then you come across as clumsy because you don't know how to act. You've never been there. So my advice would be to just avoid that altogether. Take her to a place that you've been to. Take her to a place that feels like home. You're familiar. You know this place like the back of your hand. It should feel like you're just hanging out in your backyard. Okay? Believe me, it's gonna take away a lot of stress that you might otherwise have, or a lot of opening day jitters on a first date. At the end of the day, it is what it is. It's gonna be what it's gonna be, and that's life.